We've done primary assessment, and we've set up secondary assessment. Now we need to talk about all those letters that we put in there. So let's talk about OPQRST and sample and what they mean. Remember, if you're going to ask questions of your patient, you need to be asking them for a reason. What I mean is, don't just ask questions to fill time. Don't just ask questions because you're not sure what else to do. If you're going to ask a question, actually listen to the answer. And when they give you an answer, try to figure out, what does it mean? Use that answer to inform further questions. Really hear what they're telling you. Otherwise, there's no point in asking those questions. OPQRST is a way in which we can ask questions about what might be going on medically with our patient. Not all of these questions are always going to be relevant. And sometimes you're going to need more questions than this. And you may find that with every question you ask, it leads to another question in that category, and another, and that's perfectly fine. Assessment is about getting to the bottom of the problem. So ask as many questions as you need until you can figure out the answer, or at least get as close as you can possibly get. So let's start with O. O stands for onset. Now, onset has two components to it. One means, when did it start? When did this patient's complaint begin? Whatever they're complaining of, headache, nausea, chest pain, difficulty breathing, when did it begin? 20 minutes ago? An hour ago? A second ago? The second component of onset is, what were they doing when it began? Were they sitting still? Were they hiking? Were they running? Were they biking? You need to put the two together. I'll give you an example. You come up to a patient who's having chest pain, and this patient says, my chest pain began 20 minutes ago. And you say, what were you doing? And they say, oh, I was trail running when all of a sudden I got chest pain that started about 20 minutes ago. Okay. Now you come up to another patient who's having chest pain. You say, when did it start? They say 20 minutes ago. You say, what were you doing? They say, nothing. I was just sitting here having lunch. The same 20 minutes, but a very different onset. It tells you something different about that patient. And you may be sitting there saying, well, what does it tell me? We'll get there later. What you need to do right now is get the information. When did it start? What were they doing when it started? P. Palliate, provoke. Palliate means, is there anything that makes it better? Whatever the patient's complaining of, is there anything that they have done, that you've done, that makes it feel better? They have a headache. You say, anything makes your headache better? They say, yeah, if I close my eyes, if I block out the light, it makes my headache feel better. That's palliate. That tells you something about that problem. That's palliate. Provoke. Provoke means, is there anything that makes it worse? Anything that they have done or that you've done that makes it worse? For instance, the patient says, I'm having trouble breathing. You say, okay, anything makes it worse for your breathing? Say, yeah, if I lie down, my breathing gets really difficult. I have a very hard time breathing. But if I sit up, my breathing's better. Lying down would be a provoke. It makes it worse. So those things tell you about what's going on. Palliate, provoke. Q stands for quality. Quality just means, try to describe it to me. Use adjectives and try to describe in your words what it feels like. So let's take pain, for instance. You say, oh, you're having pain in your abdomen. Can you tell me what it feels like? Now, this is a point where you might want to give your patient some descriptive words that they can use, because people don't always have the words to describe the pain they might be feeling. So you could say, is it cramping pain? Is it burning pain? Stabbing pain? Squeezing pain? All of those things mean different types of problems going on. So that's what quality is. Try to get the patient to describe in their own words what it feels like for them. R is radiate. Radiate means, does this problem go anywhere else? So the patient's complaining of pain, let's say, in their upper right quadrant of their abdomen, right here. And you talk to them about it, and you're getting some information. You say, well, does that pain go anywhere else? Are you experiencing pain anywhere else? And they say, yeah, I've also got some pain up here in my right shoulder. Well, you might say, did you hit your shoulder? Did you land on your shoulder? And they say, no. Well, that would be radiating pain. They may do the same thing on the left side. Maybe they have pain in the upper left side of their abdomen. And then they're saying, but yeah, my left shoulder is really achy, but I didn't do anything to it. That's radiating pain. Radiate can also mean that the pain started in one spot and moved to another area. So for instance, a patient may be telling you they've got pain in their lower right quadrant of their abdomen, down here. And you're talking to them, you say, well, has it always been there? And they say, no, a couple of days ago, maybe it was like right here, right in the middle of my stomach. That's radiate, meaning the pain moved from one place to another place, or the pain is exhibiting itself in multiple areas. S stands for severe. How severe is the pain that they're experiencing? This is the 1 to 10 scale. I'd be willing to bet that everyone has heard of the 1 to 10 scale. You've all been asked at some point in your life, on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me where your pain is. This is a very, very good scale that gets a bad rap. The reason it gets a bad rap is because people don't actually understand how to use it. There are a couple of things you have to understand about this scale. First off, this is the patient's pain scale. This is not your pain scale. It's not about what you think the pain should be. It's about what the patient is experiencing. You may think it's funny if a patient has a hangnail and they tell you it's a 10 out of 10 pain, but for them, it's a 10 out of 10 pain. That's fine. Or someone is missing their left leg and they say it's a 2. That doesn't really matter. What we use this pain scale for, what's really, really good about this pain scale for your purposes, is change over time. And if you're taking notes, which you should be, circle that phrase, change over time. It's going to come back to us over and over and over again throughout this class. Change over time means as the time progresses with this patient, do things change? And this is what the pain scale is for. When you first meet your patient, you assess them and you find a problem and you say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your pain? And the patient says a 7. Half an hour later, you ask again, hey, where's your pain level? And they say, it's a 7. Great. Now, half an hour later, you ask them again. You've done some treatments. You've added a splint. You've taken care of them. You say, where's your pain level? And they say, it's a 4. What does that tell you? It tells you that your treatment's working. It tells you that things are getting better. This is what the pain scale is about. It's about following them over time, trending them over time to figure out, is your patient getting better, getting worse, or staying the same? Do you need to adjust treatments? If you're doing treatments for your patient and their pain scale stays at 7 the entire time, you need to try some new things. That's what's good about the pain scale. T stands for time, and again, specifically, change over time. Has this problem changed? This time relates back to O, or onset, meaning when this problem started. Was it 20 minutes ago? Was it a day ago? Was it 3 days ago when your problem began? From the moment it started to the moment I see you now, has anything changed? Is anything different from the first signs and symptoms to where we are now? One of the things that we ask patients in an urban environment, and it's a question that you can ask as well, specifically with medical patients, is what made you seek help now? If something began 2 days ago, what changed to make you seek help now? That's change over time. OPQRST. These are very good questions, or at least a way to guide your questioning to try to get a lot more information out of your patient, specifically about medical problems where it's internal. You can't see internally. I've got to do good questioning. Let's move over to sample. Sample, remember, is simply a good patient history. I'm trying to get more information about you and your medical history. The S stands for signs and symptoms. Signs and symptoms. These are two different things. Signs are the objective facts that you can see. The patient is sweaty. The patient is pale. The patient vomited. Right? Those are all signs. They're things I can actually physically measure. Right? I can objectively test those things. Symptoms are what the patient complains of. I feel dizzy. I feel weak. I feel nauseous. Those are all symptoms. Try to figure out, what are your collection of signs and symptoms? Does the patient have any symptoms? They may be experiencing or saying there's a problem, but they may not have any symptoms of that problem. So we want to make sure that they have signs and symptoms if we are going to be moving forward on this assessment. A stands for allergies. Allergies and the next one, medications, have a series of questions we need to ask because we have to ask a lot of different things. There's a lot of information we need to get from this patient. When it comes to allergies, I'm going to ask, sir or ma'am, do you have any allergies? Now, if a patient says no to you, that's fine. I usually like to ask again to confirm that answer. No allergies whatsoever. You're not allergic to any foods or medications, just to confirm the no. But if it's a no, that's fine. We can move forward. If a patient says, yes, I have an allergy, we want to find out what they're allergic to. So I would say, sir or ma'am, what are you allergic to? And they tell me something, whatever it is. They're allergic to aspirin. They're allergic to bees. They're allergic to pollen or shellfish. I now have one more question that I need to ask. And the reason is it's really important. I need to differentiate between an allergy that could kill them and an allergy that's uncomfortable for them. An allergy that's uncomfortable for them, well, it's uncomfortable. That's not what we're concerned with right now. An allergy that could kill them, I want to be aware of that. We're going to get into anaphylaxis later in this class. Right now, I just want you to understand, if a patient says to you, yes, I have an allergy, I'm allergic to aspirin, and if I take aspirin, I can't breathe. My throat swells. My tongue swells. The last time it happened to me, I had to go to the hospital and was intubated with a breathing tube. Make note of that allergy. If they tell you they have an allergy and there's nothing in it that involves breathing or airway difficulty, I don't have to worry about it right now. That's an uncomfortable allergy. Think about breathing difficulty. M is medications. Does your patient take any medications? Just like allergies, we're going to say, sir, ma'am, do you take any medications? If they say no, I would pursue it. No medications, nothing prescription, no over-the-counter, no herbal supplements, just to make sure. If they say yes, then I want to try to find out what that medication is. Now, there are thousands of medications out there. You're never going to know all of them. I'll give you a tip, though. If you want to learn the most common medications that you're going to find in the general population, spend one day, a weekday, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. watching daytime television. You'll learn all the medications you need to know. Short of that, simply ask what they're taking it for. Now, if you get the name of it, that's great. Write it down. But if you don't know what it is, just say, what are you taking that medication for? Right? Is it a heart problem, blood pressure, right? Infectious disease, whatever. Try to find out what they're taking the medication for. And if they're taking a medication, you then want to get a little bit more information. What's the dose? Did they take it? Have there been any recent changes? What's the dose? Did they take it? Have there been any recent changes? Those things can help you out. Again, you may not get to a point where you are able to diagnose the medical problem based on the medication. But remember, you're not just getting information for yourself to take care of this patient. If they need to get evacuated, you're getting information for everyone down the line to help take care of this patient. P stands for past pertinent history. Past pertinent history means, is there anything in their medical history that relates to the problem they're complaining of now? Patients have lots of medical history, but I want to know if there's anything in their medical history that I should be aware of as it relates to the problem now. For instance, the patient's complaining of chest pain. Well, do they have known heart disease? Have they had a heart attack in the past? Do they have a family history of heart disease? The patient's having breathing problems. Do they have asthma? Have they suffered from COPD? Any of those things. Broken bones. Have they broken a bone in the past? Now, it's nice because maybe it helps me say that they're more prone to breaking their bones. But even more important than that, what I can do with a broken bone is if a patient tells me they've broken a bone in the past, I can compare the two. I say, hey, oh, you broke your arm in the past? Well, this pain in your arm now, does it feel similar to when you broke your arm in the past? And if they say yes, that goes a long way to helping me decide that this is probably a broken bone. If they say no, it feels completely different, that also helps me diagnose it. Past pertinent history. L stands for last in, last out. And we're going to get into last in, last out specifically as it relates to hydration later on. But I do want to spend a bit more time than the rest on this subject right now, because last in, last out is one of those questions, especially in the outdoor world, that gets overused. And it is given more value than it's needed. Let's break it down. What does it stand for? Last in means when, what, and how much was the last time you ate and drank. When, what, and how much. Last out is, again, last time you urinated or defecated, when, what was it, and how much. Now, urine output is an interesting subject, and as I mentioned, we'll talk more about that in hydration. So let's leave that one aside. Let's talk about defecation, last out. I'll be honest with you. Unless there is a specific reason to ask this question, for example, a patient complaining of abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea, upset stomach, I don't want to know the last time you had a bowel movement. If my patient has a possible broken arm, I don't care when the last time you pooped, right? What we do need to think about, though, is diarrhea, constipation, and upset stomach, nausea, vomiting. And we'll talk about those because they relate to hydration a little later. So let's move to the last in side. This is very common, and you'll probably recognize this. People are going along, hiking on the trail. All of a sudden, someone's sitting there and go, I don't know, I don't feel so good. It just doesn't feel right. Something's going on. And everyone goes, hey, when was the last time you ate? And it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the patient says, well, I don't know, I had breakfast at like 8. And everybody freaks out. 8 o'clock? You haven't eaten since 8 o'clock. Get them a granola bar. Quick, get them some food. Unless your patient is a diabetic, food is not their medical problem. They might feel better getting food. Everyone might get less hangry when they eat some food, but food is not their medical problem. The reason that's important is because it's very easy to get tunnel vision on that and give them some food and think you've solved everything. Now, if they do get better after eating, great, but they weren't going to die. What we need to remember is what is the appropriate way to treat last in and last outs. Yes, find out this information. When was the last time your patient ate and drank? What was it and how much? When was the last time they went to the bathroom? What, how much? But use it in conjunction with the rest of the stuff to actually mean something. And as I said, we're going to expound on this later. E stands for events. Now, by the time you make it to E, if you look back at your notes and you see that patient assessment chart, what you'll see is that at the end of E on sample, that's the end of the second step on both trauma and medical. You'll see that the only step after that is for trauma, getting some vitals, and for medical is maybe doing an exam. What it means then is E is really the end of your assessment of your patient. And the reason we have it as events is because what we want you to do is recap the entire story of what you found out so far. Go back through with your patient from the beginning, from the moment they first had any signs and symptoms. This could be 10 minutes ago, it could be an hour ago. You may need to go back 3 days to the start of their trip to recap this story. Go through the whole thing, everything you've learned so far, to make sure that you've got it right. Say it all back to them to ensure that you've got all the information correct. This is your chance to put everything together. Once you've got that, you're going to be finished basically with your assessment. OPQRST, those are your medical questions. Some translate to trauma, like severity, but those are your way that we're going to get medical information. Sample history, this is your way to get a good patient history on the person that you're working with.